I never thought I'd be one of those guys who ends up telling strangers online how his marriage fell apart. But here I am. And honestly, I still don't know how I feel about it. My name's Caleb. I've been married to Eliza for 8 years. We met at university. She was bold, ambitious, full of fire. I was steadier, more reserved, the kind of guy who listens more than talks. It worked for us. Or at least I thought it did. Everything started to shift about a year ago. Eliza got a promotion at her marketing firm. Big news, new position, more money, new coworkers, including a new manager named Drew. She lit up when she talked about the office now. Late nights, team drinks, weekend networking events. At first, I was proud. She was growing, thriving. But something changed. She started coming home later, showering as soon as she got in, checking her phone constantly. Our intimacy died out slowly. No more spontaneous kisses, no stolen glances. Just silence. When I brought it up, she brushed me off. I'm just tired, Caleb. It's been a long week. I told myself not to worry, that every relationship has quiet seasons, that it was just stress. But the feeling in my gut? It didn't buy that excuse. The turning point came on a Thursday night. She came home smelling like expensive cologne that wasn't mine and said the words that shattered everything. I want to try an open marriage. I laughed at first, thought it was a joke, but she wasn't smiling. She said she needed freedom, that she loved me, but also felt like she had missed out by marrying young, that her therapist said exploring safely could strengthen our bond. I wanted to scream. Instead, I just asked, "Is there already someone else?" She paused. "No, I mean, not exactly." And like an idiot, I agreed. I said yes. I let my wife open the door to someone else's arms, all because I was afraid that if I said no, I'd lose her completely. That night, I slept on the couch. Not because she asked, because I couldn't look her in the eyes. She went to bed humming, like she was finally free. And me? I was already mourning something I hadn't even buried yet. A week after we agreed to open things up, Eliza seemed reborn. She smiled more, laughed louder, started dressing up for work again. Dresses I hadn't seen in years, new perfume, bold lipstick. But none of it was for me. She stopped hiding the texts. I'd catch her giggling on the couch, fingers flying across the screen. She wouldn't even look guilty when I walked by. Just said, "Work chat, babe. Don't be weird." Work chat had a name now. Drew. Yeah, the manager. The one she swore it wasn't about. They had coffee, then lunch. Then I overheard her on the phone whispering that she'd booked a room at the Sycamore Hotel just to talk. That was the first time I saw red. But I didn't confront her. I didn't yell. Instead, I kept quiet. I buried my rage under logic. We agreed to this, right? You said yes. Don't be a hypocrite. But inside, I was crumbling. The silence between us grew louder. She came home glowing, tossed her purse on the counter, and hummed some tune she must have picked up from him. We stopped eating together. We stopped touching. It wasn't a marriage anymore. It was two people coexisting under one roof while one of them rehearsed her exit. So I did something I never thought I'd do. I downloaded a dating app. I wasn't looking for revenge. I wasn't even looking for connection. I just wanted to feel like I mattered to someone, like I wasn't invisible. And then I met her, Mara. She was different. Warm, curious, gentle in ways I forgot women could be. We talked for hours before we even met in person. When we finally did, it felt like taking a breath after drowning in silence. She didn't ask me for details. She didn't judge. She just listened. And for the first time in months, I felt seen. A few weeks later, Eliza noticed I was smiling more. "New client at work?" she asked. I shrugged. "Something like that." She laughed. "Well, whatever it is, it looks good on you." That was the moment I realized something had shifted. She wasn't the only one exploring anymore. And suddenly, she didn't look as confident about the whole arrangement as she did before. I didn't expect Eliza to care. Honestly, I thought she'd be relieved. Less pressure on her, right? She had Drew after all. But the moment she realized I wasn't just sulking around anymore, something shifted in her eyes. It started small. "Who's texting you at 10 p.m.? "Mara," I said plainly, not offering more. "We're watching a show together over text." She blinked. "Oh, cute." But her jaw tightened. The next day, she was suddenly more present. She suggested we cook dinner together. She opened a bottle of wine and tried to flirt, touching my arm, laughing a little too hard at a joke I barely told. It felt fake, like performance art, like guilt wrapped in a cocktail dress. I didn't bite. That weekend, I spent the night at Mara's. We cooked breakfast together the next morning, something Eliza hadn't done for me in years. We talked about books, our childhoods, and how broken people find each other in unexpected ways. It felt real. Not perfect, but honest. When I got home, Eliza was in the kitchen. She turned and looked at me like I was someone she didn't recognize. "You were with her," she said. "Yeah," I replied. "I was." She stared at me. "I thought we agreed this wasn't about catching feelings." I raised an eyebrow. "You made the rules. I'm just playing by them." Her face fell. "I didn't think you'd actually connect with someone." I nodded slowly. "And I didn't think you'd fall into bed with your boss." Silence. For the first time in months, she didn't have a comeback. She just stood there, chewing on her regret like it had flavor. That night, she didn't go out. She didn't text. She just sat on the couch, staring at our wedding photo on the shelf like it was a stranger's life. And me? I slept better than I had in weeks. A few days later, Eliza came to me looking like a storm that didn't know where to land. "Would you go to counseling with me?" she asked. I studied her. For months, she'd been running toward freedom, toward Drew, toward anything but us. And now, she wanted therapy? Why now? Because, she hesitated. Because I don't think I want this anymore. The open marriage. The distance. I think I made a mistake. I should have felt vindicated. I should have thrown her words back in her face. But instead, I agreed. Not for her, for clarity, for closure. Our first session was tense. The therapist, Miranda, was calm and kind. She asked Eliza what had changed, why she wanted to be here, why she was suddenly questioning everything. Eliza stared at the rug for a long time before speaking. "I didn't want to lose myself," she said, "but I think I lost him instead." Then came the truth. She admitted she had already been emotionally involved with Drew before she brought up the open marriage, that she had kissed him in his car after a company event, that her friends, mostly single women from work, encouraged her to explore it further, told her monogamy was antiquated, and that if I really loved her, I'd understand. She said Drew made her feel wanted again, but he also made her feel disposable. He never made promises, but hinted at things, about leaving his fiancée, about what could be. She said she didn't think I'd actually go through with seeing someone else, that she assumed I'd wait for her to come back. That last part hurt more than any of it. I looked her straight in the eye. "Do you even hear yourself? You started pulling away long before you asked for an open marriage. You wanted the door open, but only for you." Miranda nodded gently, then asked, "Caleb, what do you want?" And for the first time in months, I said it out loud. "I don't know." Because the truth was, I didn't. I just knew I didn't trust her anymore. And I wasn't sure I ever would. Therapy continued, but the space between Eliza and me kept growing. It wasn't anger anymore. It was detachment, like the final strands of a once strong rope quietly snapping one by one. And in that distance, Mara filled the silence. What started as companionship had become something deeper. She wasn't just someone to talk to. She became someone I looked forward to seeing, someone who made me feel respected, admired, safe. I never hid her from Eliza. I had no reason to. She had Drew, or so I thought. One evening, Eliza asked if I could come home early to talk. I had a feeling it wasn't about therapy. When I walked in, she was pacing the living room, clutching her phone like it held bad news. She looked up with tears in her eyes, a rare sight. "He's engaged," she blurted. "Drew, he's been engaged this entire time. I mean, I knew he was in a relationship, but I didn't know. He was planning a wedding. While he was sleeping with me." I stood there, still. "Hello. I thought he was going to leave her," she added, voice cracking. I said nothing. She sat down hard on the couch. "He said I was different. Said he saw something in me that he hadn't felt in years." I sat in the chair across from her. "Sounds familiar." She flinched. "I broke it off," she said quickly. "I ended it. I blocked him. I've cut off my friends too. The ones who pushed all this. I thought I could have both. I thought I could have freedom and still come back to you. I wanted to feel sorry for her. But instead, I just felt numb." Then she asked something that made my jaw tighten. "Do you love her?" "Mara." She nodded. I didn't say yes. I didn't have to. Eliza wiped her eyes. "Can we try again? Just us?" I took a breath and looked her in the eyes. "You're not asking because you love me. You're asking because you're alone." She didn't deny it. And that told me everything I needed to know. After that conversation, there was no shouting, no accusations, just a heavy, soul-crushing silence that settled between us like fog in a graveyard. The next morning, I got up before sunrise, sat at the kitchen table, drank a cup of black coffee I barely tasted. Eliza came in wearing one of my old college hoodies, the same one she used to steal because it smelled like me. She looked small in it, ashamed, lost. I was going to make breakfast, she said quietly. I nodded. You don't have to. She sat down across from me. You're really going to leave, aren't you? I didn't answer at first. I just looked at her. Not with hate, with the kind of tiredness that only comes when you've grieved something while still living inside it. You didn't just open our marriage, I said. You opened a wound I didn't even know I had. She looked away. I can't keep pretending this is fixable just because you regret it now. I needed you months ago, and you gave that version of you to someone else. Tears welled in her eyes again, but she didn't interrupt. I'm not punishing you, I added. I just can't trust you. Not now. And so I packed. One suitcase, my laptop, a folder with our mortgage papers, and a spare key I wouldn't need anymore. Mara had offered to let me stay with her, but I wasn't ready for that. I got a small rental downtown, just a furnished one-bedroom above a bakery. Nothing fancy, just quiet. Eliza watched from the doorway as I loaded the last bag into the car. She didn't chase me. She didn't beg. She just said, please don't let this be the last page. I didn't promise her anything, because I didn't know what kind of story this even was anymore. It didn't take long for the rest of the truth to come crashing down. A week after I moved out, I got a message from one of Eliza's old friends, not one of the instigators, but someone we both knew from years back. She said I should check in on one of Eliza's open marriage circle girls, a woman named Trish. Apparently, Drew had been involved with her too, while seeing Eliza, while engaged. And Trish, she thought she was pregnant. I didn't want to get dragged into the drama, but part of me still cared enough to ask Eliza if she knew. She did, and she was livid, not just because of the pregnancy scare, but because Trish had told her the whole truth, that Drew called all of them placeholders behind their backs, that he bragged about how easy it was to manipulate bored married women, that he never intended to leave his fiancée, and that everything he said to Eliza had been a performance. Eliza told me she had reported him to HR anonymously. She claimed she didn't want revenge, she just didn't want him to keep doing this to others. But I think she also wanted redemption, a way to cleanse herself of the damage she helped cause. What surprised me most was Trish. She reached out to me personally, said she was sorry for being part of the group that pushed Eliza toward the open marriage idea in the first place, said she felt responsible for how far things had spiraled. She really loved you, Trish said. Even when she was doing everything wrong, she talked about how solid you were, like you were the only thing she never wanted to lose. I didn't know what to say to that, because loving someone doesn't always mean they won't break you. Sometimes they just break you slower, softer, until one day you wake up and don't recognize who you are anymore. 2 weeks after I moved out, Mara invited me to a dinner party with some of her friends. I almost declined. I wasn't in the mood for small talk or cheerful couples laughing over wine, but she gave me that gentle look, the one that didn't pressure, just offered, and I said yes. I'm glad I did. That night, I sat at a candlelit table surrounded by people who didn't know anything about my past, who weren't whispering about betrayal or open marriages or HR reports. Just good people, laughing about childhood memories and making sarcastic jokes about bad dating stories. And Mara, she never once brought up Eliza. She didn't fish for validation. She didn't ask for reassurance. She just squeezed my hand beneath the table, and that simple touch said, I'm here if you want me to be. After dinner, we sat on her balcony, drinking tea and watching the city lights flicker. You've been quiet tonight, she said. I'm tired, I admitted. But it's a good kind of tired. She nodded, then asked a question Eliza never had. What do you want? Not, what are you willing to tolerate? Not, what can you survive? But what do you actually want? No one had asked me that in years. I want peace, I said. Not just in the relationship, in my head. Mara smiled. Then start there. With that. And it hit me. Eliza had always wanted me to fix things, the bills, the mood, her restlessness. I was the stabilizer, the constant. But Mara, she didn't want me to fix anything. She just wanted me to be. And that, more than anything, made me realize how far I'd drifted from what I once thought love was. It was a Sunday morning when Eliza showed up at my door. No warning, no text, just a knock, hesitant, like she already knew she shouldn't be there. I opened the door to find her standing with a box in her hands. Inside were some of my books, a hoodie I thought I'd lost, and, oddly, the mug she once gave me that said "Best Husband Ever" in fading gold letters. She looked tired. Not messy, not dramatic. Just exhausted. Like the weight of every decision she made had finally landed on her shoulders all at once. I thought you'd want these back, she said. Thanks, I said flatly, taking the box and setting it inside. She didn't move. She lingered. I miss you, Caleb. I didn't respond. She stepped forward slightly. I've been thinking about everything. About what I said, what I did. I was selfish. I was wrong. I let people influence me who didn't care about my marriage. Or me, really. I kept my eyes on hers. Calm. Neutral. But inside, something churned. I went to another therapy session, she continued. Alone. I told Miranda everything. About Drew. About how I tricked myself into believing I was exploring when I was really just escaping. Silence. Then she said the words I knew were coming. Do you think we could ever try again? I took a breath and leaned against the doorframe. Eliza, you're asking the wrong question. She blinked. You should be asking why you want us again. Is it because I'm safe? Because you're scared? Because no one else turned out to be what you thought they were? Or is it because you actually see me now? She didn't answer. So I added, if you have to think that hard about it, you already know. A long pause. I thought we'd grow old together, she whispered. I nodded. So did I. Then I closed the door, gently, but firmly. And this time, I didn't look back. After Eliza left, I sat in silence. No music, no distractions, just the quiet hum of the city through the open window and the soft echo of her voice still lingering in my ears. For the first time in a long while, I didn't feel confused. I didn't feel angry. I didn't even feel heartbroken. I just felt done, not out of bitterness, not because I wanted to hurt her, but because I finally understood something I had avoided for too long. Closure doesn't come with a perfect conversation or dramatic apology. It comes when you realize you're no longer waiting for one. Eliza would always be a part of my story, but she wasn't my story anymore. Later that week, I told Mara everything. Not the filtered version. The raw truth. The open marriage. The betrayal. The mess. The door Eliza tried to reopen. Mara didn't flinch. She simply asked, so what do you want now, Caleb? Now that it's really over? I smiled. A small, honest smile. I want to build something honest. Something that doesn't start with damage control. She leaned her head on my shoulder. Then start here. With me. Clean slate. And for the first time in years, the future didn't feel like something I was dreading or trying to survive. It felt like a beginning. Not a perfect one, but one I got to choose for myself. A few days later, I found myself writing. Not an email. Not a text. An actual letter, pen and paper, addressed to Eliza. I never intended to send it, but I needed to get the words out of me. All the ones I swallowed to keep the peace, to keep the illusion alive. Words I should have said when she first told me she wanted freedom. Here's part of what I wrote. Eliza, you broke my heart long before you kissed Drew. You broke it the moment you made me feel like I was no longer enough and expected me to stay quiet about it. I didn't agree to an open marriage because I wanted to explore. I agreed because I was afraid you already had. I watched you become someone else, someone I couldn't reach. And when I tried, you looked at me like I was holding you back. You told me we needed to grow. But what you really meant was that you wanted to leave without feeling like a villain. And I let you. I let you walk away in pieces instead of asking why I was shattering with you. But here's the truth. I don't hate you. I hope you heal. I hope you become the version of yourself that doesn't run when things get uncomfortable. I hope you never confuse chaos for passion again. I hope someday, when you're sitting alone and wondering what could have been, you remember me not as the man you left, but the one who finally left you back. I folded the letter, slid it into an envelope, and placed it in the back of my desk drawer. Because sometimes closure isn't about delivering the message. Sometimes it's just about writing it down and letting it go. About a month after I moved out, I got a message from Eliza's former coworker, the one who warned me about Drew and mentioned Trisha's situation. This time, she had an update. Drew had been reported by multiple women, and HR had launched a formal investigation. Apparently, he'd been mentoring several female employees with strings attached. Strings that always seemed to tangle into his hotel sheets. It didn't end well for him. His engagement? Broken off. His reputation? Crumbling. And his job? Terminated with quiet HR phrasing like contract separation. Eliza never gloated about it. She didn't even tell me it had happened. Instead, I found out through that same coworker that Eliza had offered a full, on-the-record statement. Even shared texts and emails she'd once clung to for validation. In a strange way, that was the most honest thing she'd done in months. And maybe the bravest. Later that week, Eliza asked if we could meet for coffee. Just once. No expectations. No therapy. Out of curiosity and closure, I agreed. We sat across from each other at a quiet cafe, and for the first time, she looked at me not with hope or regret, but honesty. I thought being wanted by someone else would make me feel whole, she said. But it just made me feel hollow with a smile on. I nodded. I know that feeling. She glanced at my hands. Are you happy with her? I'm healing with her, I said. It's different. She smiled softly. You were always the kind of man people don't appreciate until they lose you. There was no tearful hug, no dramatic goodbye, just mutual recognition of what we once were and what we'd never be again. And that, somehow, was enough. The divorce wasn't dramatic. No courtroom fights. No bitter arguments about who got the couch or the blender or the memories. Just paperwork. Dull, clinical paperwork that somehow still managed to carry the weight of 8 years of shared history. I met with a lawyer a week after that cafe talk. She was direct but kind. Asked me what I wanted. Peace, I told her. She nodded like she'd heard that one before. Eliza didn't fight it. When the papers arrived, she signed without hesitation. No passive-aggressive notes in the margins, no last-minute attempts to renegotiate feelings. She included a letter, though. It was handwritten. Brief. Caleb, you were the calm in every storm I created. You gave me love I didn't know how to hold, and I hurt you because I didn't know what to do with something that pure. If I ever become the kind of person who deserves that kind of love again, I'll know I had it once. Thank you for being better than I deserved. Eliza, I read it once. Then I folded it and slid it into the back of the same drawer where my own unsent letter to her still sat. Not because I wanted to keep it, but because it felt right for them to rest in the same place. Two voices that no longer needed to speak. I told Mara that evening. She didn't ask me what it meant for us. She didn't push. She simply said, that must have been hard, and wrapped her arms around me. It was the first time I realized what real emotional safety felt like. No fear. No guessing games. Just presence. I had finally closed the door. And for the first time, I wasn't afraid of what might be waiting on the other side. 6 months later, I stood on the balcony of Mara's apartment, watching the sunrise paint the sky in soft oranges and blues. She was inside, making coffee, humming off-key to some old love song on the radio. The smell of cinnamon drifted out with her. I'd moved in with her quietly, without ceremony. Just a few bags and a shared understanding that we weren't rushing, we were building. And I was healing. The past still knocked sometimes. Memories of laughter with Eliza, the way our dog used to curl between us on lazy Sundays, the anniversary trips, the plans for kids we never had. But they no longer brought pain, just a kind of gentle ache, like a scar that no longer burns, only reminds. Eliza never reached out again after the divorce was finalized. No texts, no what-if messages. I think she finally understood that some bridges, once burned, aren't meant to be rebuilt. But I know, deep down, she regrets it all. Not just the affair, not just the marriage, but the moment she chose excitement over stability, validation over loyalty. The moment she looked at a man who loved her without condition and thought he'd always be there, no matter what she did. She was wrong, and I think that realization will haunt her far longer than the silence I left behind. Because here's the truth. Love isn't proven in the highs, the passion, the wild freedom, the butterflies. It's proven in the lows, the mundane, the quiet loyalty of staying when things aren't thrilling. When you choose to honor the person who built with you, even when someone else waves something shinier in front of your face. And once you break that kind of love, you don't get it back. Eliza taught me that. But Mara? She taught me what comes after. Peace, presence, partnership, not performance. And for the first time in a long time, I finally feel like I'm living forward, not looking back. The grass isn't always greener. Sometimes it's fake. If you trade trust for temporary attention, you may lose the one person who would have watered your soul for a lifetime. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like the video. It really helps the channel grow and brings you more content like this.